to Christ in Crafting. I'm Lisa with Lisa Boone Designs, and I don't know if you've noticed yet, but I'm doing a 30-day marathon. I'm trying to bring Jesus back into Christmas. Not that I'm trying to bring him back, he's already there, but I'm trying to focus us on Jesus. So focus us on scripture, not Santa Claus, not anything that is extra and added to what a lot of people will call Christmas, but taking it back to the real matter. We are celebrating Christmas because we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And so I'm excited about this process. I'm excited about bringing on my friends. I have several friends that I've invited to join me on this journey. Small business owners, some of them, most of them are paint retailers or Iron Orchid Design stockists. So we all have that in common. I've invited a few makers as well. And so I'm really, really thrilled about this opportunity to share Jesus with the masses. And so if you love Jesus, let me know. And if you're liking these tutorials, let me know. We've already done 2. Today's the 3rd one. And how you'll know to follow all of the videos is you'll want to follow the playlist. And the playlists are linked in the videos. This way, you can make sure that you see all of them. Some of them will be posted on my friends' YouTube channels. If they don't have a YouTube channel, then I'll post it on here. And I'll link to their websites and their Facebook pages. So you'll want to follow on Facebook if you have Facebook. And if you definitely have YouTube, you're watching on YouTube, you're going to want to go ahead and subscribe to their channels because we're all trying to grow our businesses. We're all trying to grow our YouTube channels. And so it's such a blessing when you subscribe. So let's get started. What I'm doing is I have purchased this book. I don't like the color and I don't like this. I like to decorate with vintage books, but I bought this one because it had a nice hardcover. And what I want to do is change it up. We're going to decoupage this saying. I'm going to talk to you about that here in a second. I actually printed it on tissue paper. I've showed this before how I do this. I'll go over it in detail. We're going to take one of the Iron Orchid Design molds and I'm going to put it on the spine and we're going to paint it. And I believe we're going to do some extra things as well. We're going to see how it goes. First, we're going to start with a color that I created. Now I want you to see. This is chunky. I created this a while back. I'm going to go ahead and spritz this with my Fine Mist sprayer because DIY paint is non-toxic. It doesn't have any additives, any plastics, anything that would hurt you at all. But it is a clay-based paint and it dries up. It gets thick. The reason it got thick is because I couldn't close it because this has so much caked on paint. But I could just throw some water in there. And now I have reconstituted the paint. I probably put a little bit too much water, but that's okay also. No worries. I created this green color using aviary and weathered wood. So I'm going to paint this portion in this green color because I figured I've got to use this up. I don't like to paint to go to waste at all. And then I'm going to paint the spine in weathered wood. And so it's going to go great together because there's weathered wood in the green color. And then I'm going to put the mold on there. We're going to distress it. We're going to reveal some of it back. And I am going to add some golden rule. I'll show you that here in a second. So let's go. I'm going to just take a brush and I always start with a wet brush. I'm just wetting it a little bit because there's a lot of water here. So I'm not going to worry about that. All right, I've got my dog's tags there for some reason. All right, so this is way too liquidy, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint this. I'm not going to worry so much about if I go over because I'm going to paint this after this is nice and sealed. And I'm going to put some tape on here so I can get a straight line. So today's scripture, or this project is brought to you by today's scripture, right? It is Ephesians 6:10, and it says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. And there are several places in scripture where God tells us to be strong in the Lord, to be courageous, to be bold, to stand firm. And there's a reason. We have a very present, he's our very present help in time of need, because we have an enemy that wants to see us defeated. And so he's saying it doesn't matter what it looks like. Do not fear. Do not be afraid. Be strong. And I love Joshua 1:9. It says, be strong and courageous. And he says it in verse 6, 7, and 9. He repeats himself 3 times. And it says it even in First Chronicles. And there's other, I think in Deuteronomy, there's other verses where he says that. Whenever God repeats himself, we have to listen. And that's a promise that we can stand on. In his might, there is strength, and we can be strong when we lean on him. So I love that that scripture because it reminds us. And then on the top, I have be brave, be strong, be you. Because God created us. He fashioned us in our mother's womb, not to be like anybody else, but to be us, uniquely made and fashioned in our womb, our personality, everything, our gifts, everything that we're going to be. He created before we were even born. In our mother's womb, he fashioned us. And so you can't be anybody else but yourself. And so that's the sentiment. That's the story. Even though this book is a different story, that's the story that we're telling by putting this on the cover. So this is just a decor item. If there is something that you would like to see done, please put it in the comments and let me know. Because you might have a really great idea that I hadn't thought about. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my painter's tape here. Now generally you would want to put this down after this is dried for a bit. But of course, we don't have that kind of time. So I probably should have done this and painted. Yeah, let me do that. Let me paint this side real quick, so I can do it all in one fell swoop. Now, I don't know if you notice, but because of the amount of water, the ratio of paint to water that I have in here, there is no texture at all. This is a smooth finish, which is really great for a book. So the more water that you put, the thinner the paint is, the smoother it is. Even though we're talking about a clay product, because I've added water and I'm using a synthetic brush as well, you can get a nice smooth finish. I mean, this is pretty. And you see how light it becomes. DIY paint dries a lot lighter, and it gives you a really matte finish. If it's something that you're going to put on your wall, or even a book, and you're not going to touch it a lot, it's not going to get dirty, there's not going to be any spills, you don't have to seal it. But when you do seal it, it gets a lot more vibrant, and it looks amazing. So this is weathered wood. It looks super, super cool on here. I just did yesterday's project. I used weathered wood, and I love the way that piece turned out. I brought it to the store today. If you didn't see that one, you'll want to go back and look at it. I did it yesterday with Rachel, one of my friends. She's a DIY paint retailer from Tennessee, and I went to visit her and her store. It was so much fun. Now, if anything happens, and because this is also kind of thin, you can, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I get all my creases. See, I'm glad I did that. You can fix it. If it seeps through to the other side, you can fix it. You know, just take a nice brush, and a nice tipped brush, and angled, and you can fix it. You could also just go ahead and retape it and just fix anything that seeps under. Not too shabby. Uh-oh, there's steam coming out of here. Let's move that. Okay. So I got a little bit of the paint came off from the tape because this is fresh paint. I've not let it sit at all, but you know what? I don't mind that because the background is cream color, And see, when you put this on the table and you see this old vintage yellowed paper, and then what we're going to put on there, and it's going to look so, so great. Now, I will paint the inside cover in the front and in the back because we don't want this to warp. So I will paint that after we're finished on the outside. So I created this to sit right here, but what I want to do is I played with the width of this, and I grabbed my paper cutter. And so I want to go ahead and put this all the way to the top, and I cut a little slit so that I'll know where to cut this. Now I figured this would tear a little bit, and that's all right. I can work with that because it's not and that's okay. I wasn't sure how that would do. I do have scissors. It's probably best. I'm just not a straight cutter, and so I just thought, well, I'll try it. But if I would have glued it down like I usually use two double-sided tape, and I want this to go here. So I usually go like this. I should have just done that. You should do what you know to do, but I wanted to try it and see if it would work. If I would have used a double-sided stick tape, I think I would have had a better result. All right, so we're just going to cut this. Now you can cut it smaller, but I wanted to, because I painted the background green. Normally when I do this, I paint the background white because the tissue paper is white. So I just taped it. I used regular tape and let me see if I can show you. It's taped right here. See that tape? I taped it all along and on the back so that I could put it through my printer. And this is actually a toner printer, a laser printer. See, I taped it on the back so that it would be nice and smooth. But that came off very easily. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to make sure that I get this on the edge. I want this to be firmly attached, and I want to get it nice and smooth. Okay, maybe I do need to go over a little bit since I cut it right there. All right, we'll adjust. Part of crafting is adjusting and going with the flow, isn't it? I'm going to pour some Big Top in here, which I did make a mess on my table. All right, I originally started pouring it here. All right, so I need to get this straight. Because this is actual napkin tissue paper, I cut it a little bit too short. This is actually so thin that I can go ahead and decoupage this literally. Oops, my cheap little brush broke. I can decoupage it right on top, and that's why I'm holding it firm. I do this when I use tissue paper sometimes because I don't want it to move. I want it to stay right where it is because I have it positioned exactly where I want it. And I don't want my paper to tear. So I'm careful with it. It's very thin. So what I do is whenever I decoupage with napkins, I keep the plies. There's usually 2 or 3 plies in every napkin. So I will use the top part for my project, and then I will keep the second and the third ply so that I can do this. Sometimes you can stamp it, you can, or just use it to clean up your project, the mess that you made, but definitely don't throw it away and let it go to waste. I'm going to figure out, I have a little bit of clay. I just got some clay into the store, and I knew that I should have grabbed myself some clay for the house, for projects, and I forgot, so that means I'm going to have to go right back to the store tomorrow to get some clay. This is a little bit older, and so it's not as moist, but it's still moist. It's been in this bag here. So this is Trimmings 1, 2, and 3. I'm out of stock of number 2. All of these products, by the way, can be purchased on my website, lisaboondesigns.com. If you're in Madisonville, you can shop local at 575 McCoy Avenue, or if you're in the driving distance, or you can just shop on my website, lisaboondesigns.com. So I think I like this one. Yeah, that'll fit perfectly. And what I like to do is work it in. It's a little bit tough just because it's not a new one. And I've had it for a while. I kept using other ones. You know what I didn't do? I didn't dust it with my cornstarch. But I don't think that'll be a problem. Dusting it with this cornstarch is a great habit to get into. It will allow your mold to just release very, very cleanly. All right, so you just want to work it in there. And then I'm just going to use this straight edge to take off, because I really want this to be super, super straight. I'm just rubbing it on the edges. And there's a couple of places here where it needs a little bit more. And see, I can take this and I can reuse it. Just throw it in here. And I'm going to just take all the air out. So now what I like to do is use Tight Bond Quick and Thick to glue it on here. You want just enough. You don't want a lot of glue, but just enough, and you want to make sure you get your edges. And if I need more glue, then I'll put some more, but I'd rather do that. Sometimes if I put too much, then I'll just go through it and just smooth it out and take off the excess. So now I'm going to put my book like this, and this is going to be a little bit wider. It should be, I think. And I'm just going to press it down and curve it to the shape of the spine. I want to make sure that my edges are nice and down. I don't want to push down so hard that, and see, there is some cracking right there, and that's because the clay was a little bit dry. But that does not bother me. But see how there's gaps? I don't want any gaps. I want this to be really, really adhered. And periodically you might have to go around and do it again. And see, make sure you get your top and your bottom. And see how this, I'm just going to push it down right onto here. I don't want to mess up my detail. We have such great molds with Iron Orchid Design. And typically what you would want to do is you would want this to dry, even overnight, and it gets rock hard. I'm going to go ahead and paint it. Now you see this is already dried, and you can see the difference between where I put some patina. You can see the difference of what's sealed and what's not. So basically this is sealed, this is not. And that's the color that you will get versus the matte look of just the paint alone. But look at how cool the tissue paper with the torn edges, it looks super cool. And the wrinkles, I really like it. And you can see the scripture really well. It looks like a book cover, doesn't it? All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start painting it. And what I'm going to do, this is liquidy. I had already put some water in here the other day. I'm going to go ahead and I'm using this brush. Okay, I want to make sure it's totally, I don't want any white to show. You turn it every which way and then you see that you left off a few white spots. Because these molds are so incredibly detailed. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but these molds can be used for sugar arts. So if you're not a crafter, or if you know someone that likes to bake, tell them about it. It's nice and dry. I'm just going through. The clay's not, it's not set. It's still moldable because it hasn't been that long, even though I put some heat on it. So I'm just going through and making sure that my edges are nice and secure. So I'm going to seal this by using my big top. And I want to go ahead and make sure that it gets in all of the crevices, and then I'll wipe it. Because I don't want it to stay in the crevices, but I do want to make sure that my crevices are sealed. You could use liquid patina. Big Top has a satin finish, but you could definitely decoupage with it. I do it all the time. You never want your heat gun too close to Big Top because it will start bubbling. So you do want to move it along and not have it too hot or too close or in one place for too long. So once my molds dry, I'll probably do this tomorrow, just so that I have a really good adhesion. Like I just put this down and I put it on clay. So I'm going to have to just hit that. See that there's a little piece of clay. So I'll just have to hit that and I'll cover it up. But what I've planned, make sure this is clean. What I'm planning to do is I have this sheet of decoupage paper, and it just, I think, coordinates well with this. And I'm going to paint the inside and decoupage the paper inside. And I want to add just a little bit of swirling something on here. So what I want to do is grab my tape and cover this up. It's going to be my mask. I'll do this side first and then the other side. And so I'm just going to, this stencil I purchased from my friend Rachel. It's made by Mara LaFay of Vintage Retail Therapy for Jamie Ray Vintage. I'm going to use this JRV stencil brush. I got them also from, it's called Stella Rose Boutique. Yesterday's video has all of her links. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply the golden rule. It's a gold wax. Now, what I find when you use this is that it looks like it's going to smear. It looks smeared. But when it dries, it looks amazing. And see how it just adds a little bit of something. All right, let me show you. It just makes it extra special, doesn't it? I smeared it. So I'm just going to rub it. And it gives it a pretty cool image. Okay, so it's not exactly what I had wanted to do, but I like the gold accent on here. So I'll go ahead and I'll seal this back. The gold and the weathered wood turns into a bronze color. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks super cool. I've actually taken golden ticket and layered chocolate or dark and decrepit to make a bronze, but this is super, super cool. I like the bronze, but I'm going to add back just a little bit so that it looks kind of weathered. I'm going to hit the top. Just so it looks worn. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've been inspired. I hope that maybe you learned something new, not only as the craft, but also in scripture. Or that maybe it's a confirmation that God is sharing with you to be strong and courageous. And he's been saying it to you and you weren't sure what that meant. And I just hope it speaks life to you and it is a blessing to you. So I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel. I hope that you will follow along during the 30 days of Christ and Crafting. If you haven't watched the previous videos, please go back to the playlist. All of the information is in the description. And don't forget to like and comment also, because it does help my YouTube channel to grow. So I hope that you enjoyed it. And here's a nice little, quick little craft. Great, you can do this in any color, any scripture, any saying, and just make it your own. Again, all of the products can be found on my website, lisaboondesigns.com. I hope that you have an incredibly blessed day. Thank you so much for watching.